This is our first Women's History Month panel. It is Rise Up, Women's Marches Start a Movement. So I want to welcome you to that. When we were coming up with our events for Women's History Month, we thought that this was very timely, seeing as how Chicago has just been host to this very large Women's March that happened on January 21st. Over 250,000 women and men and children came out to Grant Park with the hopes of marching, and because of the numbers, they had a hard time moving around. But I know some people did march, some were just there to hear the speakers. So we thought it would be a really great idea to have some people who attended that march share their experiences. And so I'd like to welcome, today we have Maura Vizza here. She's our communications specialist. She documented the march through her photo lens. And so she's going to show photos that she took and explain why some of the photos that she took stood out to her and why she thought that those were worth capturing. Then we have Merri Fefles. She's Associate Professor of History and Political Science, so she will bring to the discussion somewhat of a history of women's movements in the past, and maybe a little bit of a why this march happened and some of the extenuating circumstances that surround the march. And then on the end, we have Stephenie Presseller. She's our Sustainability Manager. She's going to talk a little bit about how this Women's March expanded into more of a kind of a social justice march, and how there were so many different causes out there, instead of just women's rights, but also all the different people who were represented. Stephenie marched not only for women's rights, but also for climate change. So she's going to talk a little bit how it became much bigger than that. So I would like to just throw it over. Merri, would you like to go first? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you here. I just realized that when I put up my PowerPoint that I was unknowingly putting up women's suffrage colors, and I wasn't intending to do that, but the colors of the women's suffrage movement were like cream, gold, and purple. And that the orange is not really gold, but that yellow could sort of be gold. And I did try to dress it too. I've got a cream shirt on, purple in my earrings, gold in my earrings, and gold and purple in my ring too. So in solidarity with the fact that this is Women's History Month and that this is the month in which women gained the right to vote in March of 1920. So we're coming up to the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. I thought it was appropriate to do so. And when you put it in context of the idea that I have an aunt, and I've shared that with my students before, who's 98 years old. She was born before women got the right to vote at a federal level. So when you put it in that context, it wasn't that long ago. And so the context for the Women's March, I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about some previous marches that have occurred, because this is not the first time that women have ever gotten out there and marched for a particular cause. In March of 1913, you had the struggle for women getting the right to vote went on for about 70 years. And you had, in March of 1913, a group of younger suffragettes who were very well educated, who wanted to bring attention to the cause, and decided to organize a parade. They organized the parade to be for March of 1913, to coincide to be the day before that Woodrow Wilson, future President Woodrow Wilson, was going to be inaugurated. And so they wanted to sort of take away and draw attention to the event by holding it the day before the inauguration. And so what you're seeing before here is this woman who's dressed as basically a warrior, right, astride a horse. Her name was Inez Mulholland, and she was a lawyer who campaigned for child labor, women's rights issues, and other issues. So they basically got out there and they marched down Pennsylvania Avenue, and it was a beautiful disaster, if you will. It caused essentially like a riot. Men came out and women came out in droves, thousands. You had men throwing bottles in the street, fighting with the women who were out there, because there was a lot of negative reaction to this. This was kind of the upheaval of an old order, right? And so I think for a lot of people this represented change, and oftentimes we resist change when we don't like it. We get scared of it, right? But there's a link there, right? So this was 1913. 7 years later, women do finally get the right to vote. So with the help of these women who organized the parade and later went on hunger strike in prison, a story that's not often talked about, to get that right. So, this is another picture here about we demand an amendment enfranchising the women of this country. And there was yet another one. In the 1970s, after women got the right to vote, there was an attempt to pass an Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA. And this is basically the idea that equality of rights shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex. This amendment was passed, but was never ratified by the states. But this was yet another attempt in 1972 to march in favor of that. And if you notice, if you can kind of make out there, you'll see some colors that are, again, the suffrage colors. So that's just a couple examples of previous parades in favor of women's rights, which brings us to the present. There's Donald Trump and Melania Trump walking down the street. So I'm going to speak a little personally here. Obviously, you could probably figure out from if a person went to the women's rights movement that was held the day after the inauguration, it might be fair to say that they're not really that happy with the current state of affairs. For me personally, I felt kind of disempowered after the election. And by the way, as a caveat, I don't hide my political beliefs from my students. I teach history and political science. We talk about controversial topics all the time. And so I try to create an atmosphere where I think hopefully students, in my class, hopefully students feel comfortable enough to speak up even if we disagree. We can have a discussion and disagree with one another and still have a nice discussion with one another. So I won't be hiding my political beliefs. So I felt very demoralized after the election. And this felt like a way, this march, to sort of take an action, to do something. Because I think I felt pretty powerless. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think there are a lot of other people, men and women, who felt the same way. So I'll stop myself there and I've got some pictures too to bring up as well, but I will, Maura, I'm assuming, are you going next, or Stephenie's going next? Okay, and I can show some of my pictures afterwards and to kind of piggyback off them. So thank you.
Thanks, Merri.
Thank you.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the Women's March quickly became more than just about women's rights, but I want to give you a little personal history before I do that. So when I found out, I was standing on the Great Wall of China with some colleagues and friends where the air was so bad we had to wear masks. And we all sat there and thought, thanks, how kind of scary and eerily ironic this is. So returning to Chicago, feeling slightly demoralized, but also energized and looking for ways to act, I met with friends, we met for drinks, we commiserated, we hugged each other, but then we talked about what are we going to do. And I found out about the march in Washington, D.C., and I said, that's it, I'm going, I got to go. I'm going to rent a car, I'm going to fill it with Chicago friends, we're going to crash with D.C. friends and march. But then my dad and I were in a texting conversation, and we don't necessarily see eye to eye on politics. We love one another, we respect one another, but we voted very differently. So on finding out that I was going to D.C., he texted me saying, I don't think you're really helping anyone by going to D.C. And I thought, before I respond, let me think about this. I'm going to go for a run. And usually when I go for a run, I can think things through. I get epiphanies, I'm going to solve the world, etc. Right? So I thought to myself, what's my one body going to do in D.C.? I'm going to spend $300 to $400 renting the car, paying for gasoline fees, and then also carbon emissions. All those carbon emissions just to get there. So when I got done with the run, I got home, went to the Women's March Chicago Facebook page, and I read about their initiative. And I said, I can get behind this. This is more than just about women's rights. It was inclusive of all the potential threats made by the incoming administration. Oh, something's wrong. Climate change is the single most pressing issue in the face of national security. Global security, maybe only second to nuclear war. Yeah, I'm fine. I took some medicine earlier, so I'm going to sit.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You want me to do the thing for you? Pointer?
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
You just tell me.
Yeah, you can click. Okay, so climate change is the single most pressing issue in the face of national security, global security, maybe only second to nuclear war. That's not my opinion. Ask the Pentagon. the world's religious leaders, all of the climate scientists, and all of the world's political leaders who agreed during the Paris agreements. So I'll save the emissions and I'll stay in Chicago and I'll march in the Sister March. That's how I decided this. And I thought, again, who am I helping by doing that? And to Merri's point about feeling demoralized, feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, I needed the march for solidarity and for energy. It helped me, right? But the money I saved is what's going to do the helping for others. I made a commitment that $300 to $400 that I saved was going to be donated to causes that I know will make a bigger difference than my one body in Chicago or in DC. So I donated to the ACLU, the Halstead Center in Chicago, and of course climate initiatives like the Union of Concerned Scientists and the Illinois Environmental Council. You can click. My experience that day was amazing. I was surrounded by friends, but also strangers who quickly became friends. Women, men, children, people of all ages, abilities, colors, creed, and orientation. You can see, maybe in the sign, you can see there's like Christians for love, and then there's, keep your laws off my body. But one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was that this picture on the right, that's a dump truck filled with salts. Those were all around, and those were made as a barrier to protect us from people who might think about driving a vehicle or crashing into the crowds and potentially hurting people. That was a very ominous kind of thing for me to see. I was like, oh, wow. And that's the only time I felt afraid, was because that was there, and I knew that that there are people out there that would want to potentially cause harm. At no other point was I afraid. At no other point was I uncomfortable. The kindness and care filled the air, as well as passion. And you can see from my pictures, and Maura and Merri will share it with you more, that the people marching had many different issues or messages. Some were not nice. Some were vulgar. You won't see those in my pictures.
Or mine.
Some also said, not my president, which I don't really get behind, because he is our president, and we have to acknowledge that. And if we don't like what he's doing, then we need to act out about it. But the majority of the messages were positive, and they were just pleading for a responsible government. One that is protecting basic rights of all people, protecting environmental resources we need to survive, protecting the heritage and rights of Native Americans, protecting refugees and demanding all immigrants are welcome here, and protecting our right to a free and good education. My sign, which I couldn't find a picture of, not quite sure why, did plead that everyone acknowledge climate change is real, that science is real, and it should not be silenced. But the other side also pleaded for immigrant rights, education, as well as women's rights, because those things are important too. I said that the march was more about just women's rights, and that's not just because of the signs you saw, but if you actually go to the march's website, you can see that they have several guiding principles that go beyond just women's rights. Accountability and justice for police brutality, dismantling the gender and racial inequities within the criminal justice system, freedom from sexual violence, ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution that would guarantee equal protection based on gender, affirming that all domestic and caretaking work is work, even if unpaid, and that women, especially women of color, bear the brunt of that burden, so affirming that. The right to organize and fight for a living minimum wage for all workers, labor protections for undocumented and migrant workers, and solidarity with sex workers' rights movements. Also comprehensive reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, and immigrant and refugee rights. I mentioned that some people had some vulgar signs, and a lot of us were wearing these. Some people thought had kind of a vulgar symbol to it, but I disagree. I think it was an empowerment thing. I wear mine like a shield. I'm constantly wearing it, and as I do, and I pass people on the street, they smile, they wave, they acknowledge. Never once has anybody said anything wrong. But they're called pink pussy hats, and that term can be a little bit, it can be offensive. But this was about women's rights. This was about treating women respectfully, because the incoming administration feels like it's appropriate to touch women in an inappropriate way because they can. And that's just not right. So that's what these were standing for. Somebody asked me earlier what this all meant, and so I thought I'd help you understand that. The march didn't start and stop on January 21st. It started a movement for many critical issues. And so beyond sending money, I've made a commitment to volunteer with organizations that are making a difference. The Citizens Climate Lobby, acting for climate legislation. Indivisible Chicago, which is helping to organize and inform people about things that are happening that you can act. I'm volunteering with several immigration centers coming up soon to help people fill out their N400, which is the application to become a citizen. And I recently just became a sworn-in official voter registrar in the state of Illinois, so I can help people vote. These are the things I can do with my limited time and money, but I feel they are necessary and they're part of this bigger movement. I know a lot of other people doing many good things, standing up for our sisters and brothers and knocking down hate and greed. And I think we're actually making a difference, which is good. So,
Do you want any more?
oh yeah, go to the, sorry, I wasn't paying attention to my slides.
Okay.
So there's more, families need paid leave, not just moms, not, moms, dads, all families. Just some more signs. I don't know if it was, I don't know, but I loved that it was on the cop car. I thought that was great. There were a lot of signs on cop cars, so I'm not sure. And then the last one more. I know. So this is the Women's March on Chicago. So you can see it's more than just women's rights. Here's a post about Native Americans making a stand about the fact that they're being raped, basically, by the pipelines that are coming through their communities. And then the next one is about immigration and the Muslim ban, and talking about, registering all Muslims in America in some kind of national registrar. And so, register me first. You want to register people, I'll stand up first. This isn't the first time this has happened, by the way. After 9/11, there was a call for all people here with green cards from some of these Muslim countries to come in and register. They had to come in for an interview and register. One of my friends from Pakistan actually had to go through that, which made me cry when I found out. But, and then, go again. So that's about climate denial. And then these are some of the things, like I said, that have become part of this bigger movement beyond just women's rights. So if you want any of these resources after, I'm happy to share. I'll stop there. I'm never taking that medicine again. Oh my God.
So my perspective is mostly based through photos. It's hard to follow these two who so eloquently spoke about the march. But you said everything, that I have agree with, and same reasons that I went to the march. I also felt very unempowered after the election, and lost, and alone, I guess, is a good word, thinking, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And, we're in trouble. And so going to this march, I went with my mom, and a few of her friends were there, and then I met a couple of my friends there, and, they had signs, and it felt great because I was around this mass of people who were literally packed in. I know who was closer to the stage, Stephenie or Merri was closer to stage, and you could actually hear some of the speeches that were happening. I couldn't even get close to the stage because there were so many people there. I don't even know where the stage was because I was so far away. That's how many people were down there. So it felt really good. It felt it was almost a secure feeling, all right, or hopeful, I guess is a better word, that, okay, look at all these people who feel the same way that I do, and, we're here for women's rights, but for many other rights, too. There's plenty of other signs, and I put a few of the other signs in my little collection here just to show. But, this was one of the first signs here that it reminded me of Hamilton, since that's the big rage, and I enjoyed the musical. This quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal," from the Declaration of Sentiments by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So, something that has been an issue for a while for women, that we're not always mentioned in our history and rights for women and men. So it was kind of a nice intro to, what we were doing and what we were seeing there. So this was behind, I was just taking pictures of what was behind me, what was in front of me, and as you can see, there's one of the pink pussy hats there, the pink one. You'll see that a few other times, but I mean the signs that people had and the things they were chanting varied. People definitely had angry signs that had various vulgarities on there towards the administration or giant cutouts, but there were a lot of positive things in there too. Like this one. So Merri mentioned the suffragettes and fighting for our right to vote. And I just thought this was pretty clever, again, and she's wearing one of those pink hats. You see a few of them there. And that one kind of resonated because it's like, all right, maybe we're starting this fight all over again, and we're trying to build something else, build another movement for women and for the environment and for minorities and for any group that needs to be empowered at this time. I just had kind of another look at the group and how we were kind of pressed in and just kept getting closer, hoping we could get to the stage, which we couldn't, but it was still a beautiful day. I mean, the weather couldn't have been more perfect for this march. I know in DC, I think it was a little colder, a little rainier, but for us, it was a perfect day. You'll see blue skies in some of these other photos, but that's, I think, what helped get a lot of people out there was just the weather was ideal. So I really like the I'm with her sign, among others in this picture, or the women's rights are human rights and nasty women unite. I mean, people just got so incredibly clever. I couldn't even think of half of these signs that people thought of and wrote and had out there, so I just kind of went a little crazy and like, oh my gosh, look at this sign, and this sign is great, and this one is hilarious. So some of them I took purely because I thought they were funny, and some of them I was like, yes, all right on, like I agree, and I am totally with you. Like this one, based on the Girls Just Want to Have Fun song, but it's a better message. Girls just want to have fundamental human rights, which we all agree that we would like that. This one plays to my Star Wars love, of course. There was many signs like this with Princess Leia from Star Wars and a woman's place is in the Resistance. So if you know Star Wars at all and enjoy it like I do, she's fighting for a cause and she's a good representation in the nerd world of Star Wars. Or any sci-fi that you like. There's so many, we have a lot of female protagonists in our movies these days. The Hunger Games and Divergent and, of course, Star Wars and the new Star Wars and the extra Star Wars, Rogue One. Like, it's just kind of bursting. I like Star Wars, among other movies. So this was a frequent sign I saw also out there. This next one I just thought was funny. Even though it has a woman on there, I thought, what? We're in education. One of these is a threat to public education. The other is a bear. I mean, I laughed all day looking at some of these signs. And this one I kept running up to. I was like, I must take a picture of this one. And she kept getting blocked by other people, but I just thought that one was too classic to pass up. So as I forgot who mentioned, so we were collected downtown, and we were supposed to initially march to another part of the city, but at one point we heard, no, we're staying right here. There's too many of us. There's not anywhere to go. We can't move. It's too dangerous, or there's just too many people. But people started to march anyway. So this was us making our way over the bridge, and I don't know where we were marching. I was literally just following the crowd. I was like, hey, we're marching. We have signs. People are chanting. There's music. I mean, it was like very energetic, and it was very exciting. So then I could see more signs and more people and students and kids and, everyone from any walk of life was there. So this was just us making our trek through the city slowly, but we made it anyway. And actually, there was one part under a bridge where I don't know if they had some kind of giant boombox or sound system, but they were playing all these really empowering songs. There was definitely a Beyonce song playing, and people were just kind of making this big circle and cheering and woo and getting really happy and, you know, chanting different things for. It was mostly women's rights that they were chanting for at that point, with all these empowering songs, which I thought was really cool. And I actually wanted to suggest some additional songs. Like, I have some other ideas for more songs we can add to this, but then I just kept marching along with everybody else. So these were, my mom's holding the Trump with the slash through it, but her friend has this sign, which I thought was a nice message too: don't tread on my body or my rights, I vote. So, you know, that kind of message just resonated. And was definitely the overriding theme I felt, and what I really was more passionate about for this particular march. And so again, on the march, there was just these 3 women here with their different signs, and you know, the middle one, it is about to get nasty with the female symbol with the circle and then the plus down there. So they kind of just stood there, and people were taking pictures of them, but they had a nice message. And so we passed by Roosevelt University, obviously, and there were students in the windows with their own signs, and mostly they were just kind of signs of love, like, we love you and we support you, and they were just kind of flipping around in the window, and that was their way to participate. So it was kind of cool that, you know, maybe they had to study or they had a test, but at least they were there in some way saying, we support you guys, and we're paying attention, and we're watching, and we're doing what we can. So that was kind of cool. And I have another picture. There was definitely other signs and windows from different businesses and different people. So people were trying to be present, even if they couldn't be physically present. Just another good bunch of reasons that someone was marching here. It says healthcare for everyone, closing the wage gap for men and women, paid leave for both parents. All very worthwhile things that you know, I think we definitely need to focus on. So just, again, more signs that I agreed with, and was like, oh yeah, that's a good one too. And this one I liked, since we're a Disney-loving society, with Snow White here. It says, mirror, mirror on the wall, I'll always get up after I fall, and whether I run, walk, or have to crawl, I'll set my goals and achieve them all. And I think it was some teenagers that made this sign, so that was pretty cool too. You know, they are involved in this Disney culture. You know, it's extremely popular, and you have Disney World and movies and all that, and a lot of them have female leads, but they kind of took that and twisted it into something that was more empowering, like, you know, knock me down, I'm going to get back up. So that was very cool.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of Disney, did you see the signs that were supercalifragilisticexpialidocious?
Oh,
Trump,
yeah.
you are atrocious.
Yes,
Instead
also
of
clever.
supercalifragilistic.
I did not put that in
great.
here.
That was awesome.
There was a couple of those.
There were a few of those.
Again,
they were good.
Incredibly clever. I wish I thought of it first. So I just thought this one was funny. This kid, clearly distracted by his phone, but it's like, a male was like, their body, their choice. Hi, Mom. It's like, I'm doing this for my mom. So still there, even though it looks like he's disengaged. But still there, still present. And that I just thought was exciting. Yo, this isn't normal. And again, we're making our marching way down under the bridges and under the train tracks, and around here was where the little music empowering kind of dance party happened. And just, again, going down the streets, definitely lots of chanting. There was some drums happening too. I like this one on the far right, I will not sit down and shut up, which sometimes I think women are made to feel that we need to just sit down and shut up, especially in certain positions that are more visible and higher in stature. We shouldn't be making so much noise or asking so many questions. And so that, kind kind of resonated with me as well. Like, no, I will not be quiet. And that's kind of, we're all here, we're being loud in the streets, which is pretty much all we did. We were just being loud in the streets, and we're not going to be quiet. I'm an athlete, so I really enjoy this one. It says, we are female, Fe equals iron, so Fe is the symbol for iron, and a male equals man, therefore we are Iron Men. Which, and then says suck it on the bottom. But the main message was pretty cool. Just another empowering sign, like another way to look at female that I didn't think of that way, like as Iron Men, which is very cool. Now, so this was near the very end where people were kind of tapering off. It was just kind of a ragtag band. I don't know if they knew each other or what, but you had trombones and trumpets, you had a variety of drums, and there was some tambourines, and they're, playing songs, and people are kind of chanting along to it. So it was very energetic, very exciting, and they kind of had this growing following behind them as they were making their way down the street. At the end of the street, it was blocked off, so they could only go so far. But it was still really kind of another energetic point in this march, which I thought was really fun. And then finally, another building I noticed with more signs in the windows saying we are resilient and hear our voice, and just kind of showing their support. So it was very empowering and a very uplifting day, I should say, because, feeling the way we felt in November, we needed some kind of boost to make us remember it's going to be okay. And so that's kind of what that meant. This march meant for me, that it's going to be okay. Look at all these people who think we're on the same wavelength. We're all kind of ready to hunker down and do what we need to do, and we're in this together. So that is my photo presentation. So.
Thank you, dear. So Maura had some awesome pictures, as did Steph. I'll just minimize it. Let me go to, is this mine right here? I think so. So I repel technology. So of course I just created a video without realizing I created a video, because I don't know what I'm doing at all. So I totally agree with both Maura and Steph that the fact that the weather was so good really helped a lot. And that's me with my 16-year-old niece, who is a high school student at Lincoln Way East. And she's very outspoken. I don't know where she gets that from. And so she really wanted to come with me. And although my sister didn't want to go, she did let my niece go. So we had a blast. And of course, we were driving down the street with Beyonce blaring "Run the World," trying to give the people on the streets a little something to dance to, and we were dancing in the car. So yeah, definitely the weather was fantastic. Who would think we'd be walking around in January? #thank you climate change. So yeah, so this is, I'm gonna show you just a few pictures I have, and I'll kind of stop along the way. Again, that was us, sorry, it's her taking another selfie. She's 16, it's all about the selfies. So we got a couple ones, Revolution, the one I loved in the background, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of obscured. Free Melania, yeah. There were a couple of Free Melania posters up.
Yeah, there was
one
a lot
of them
those.
was, that, did you see it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was one that was Melania Trump, if you were being held against your will, blink slowly 4 times into the camera. So, there
was so many to laugh at.
Yeah,
It was hard to be sad at this march.
You got to give progressives, they're original and they're funny. Yeah, so there were definitely a lot of funny things out there. Let's see, keep this going here. Keep your tiny hands off our rights, our bodies, our choice. A lot of posters like that. I have one of the vulgar ones. I'm not sure when it's going to pop again. Yeah, this is just, again, just to give you an idea, as Maura and Stephenie both talked about, the idea of how large and vast the crowd was, that you literally couldn't move at certain points. But I had to laugh because this is so true of women, right? I've never been to a more polite march in my life. Not that I go to tons of marches. I was in one an anti-Iraq war march that I thought I was going to observe and end up walking in. That's the only other time I've ever actually been in a march like this, but everyone was, excuse me, sorry, women bump into women, and then the woman who's being bumped into says she's sorry even though I bumped into her. This is just what we do as women. We're always saying our sorry. How many of you women in this room always say you're sorry all the time? We always do. I think it's just habit. And to be fair, I do know men who say they're sorry too a lot, but I think that we've kind of cornered the market on that one a little bit more. So a lot of bumping in, but very polite interaction.
I found it was polite between all genders. You know, I was surrounded by a lot of people, and there were plenty of men who, like, I needed to catch up with my friends because I saw a funny sign and got lost, you know, and, like, men, like, kind of blocked so I could get by, you know, and, like, just made sure that I was safe. And for the children, too, like, everybody was very aware that there were children and let's not trample them. Yeah.
It was, I would agree, it just had an overall really nice vibe. It was just positive, and I'm sure, again, the weather contributed. I mean, how do you go wrong when it's 60-some degrees in Chicago on January 21st, and sunny, and I mean, everyone was in a good mood. Yeah, one more. Yeah, this is the one I'm just going to let speak for itself.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you can make out that he's dressed as a vagina. So if you're able to make the writing on there, if that was one that was, let's say he had a crowd around him. I mean, everyone wanted to take a selfie with this guy. I think he's the most popular guy in the area. But I loved that one. And I think the term, I mean, the use of the P word, right? You saw that word in terms of the hats, the pussy bow scarves. I didn't get a hat because I couldn't justify it. I would never wear it again. I'm not brave enough to wear it again. But I did make myself a pussy bow scarf. And I think that part of the use of that term was a sense of empowerment and of taking that word back after it was used in such a crude and offensive way. At least I think that's how I felt, and I think others felt the same way.
I agree.
That would get a bigger laugh. I thought that was the funniest hat ever. Yeah, this one, there's no pill for electile dysfunction. Again, there's so many clever posters. I mean, everywhere you'd go, and you couldn't keep up with them because there were so many of them. Everywhere you turned around, there was a good one.
I had almost 100 photos from this march, but I cut it down to 20 just because of time.
So many.
There was just so many signs and people and costumes, people and.
I have to say, my niece took all these pictures because I'm so, again, I repel technology, and I like to just kind of take things in and not be constantly photographing everything. And so I sort of let her take the pictures, and you know, she kindly sent them to me. So that's courtesy of Elena Hajar. Yeah, that's the same one we already saw. So this is as we were walking back. There's three of the same thing. As we were walking back towards, so this is going. We were off of. Columbus Drive over here, and then this is Jackson Street over here. And originally the march was supposed to walk down to Jackson Square and stop there, but because, as Maura mentioned, the crowd was so vast, we had to kind of stop. Well, people, again, just kept walking, and the police were awesome. They're like, just, go ahead. And I spoke to one police officer, and I said, thank you for just kind of letting us go. He's like, well, the truth is there are a lot more of you than there are of us, so we're not really going to stop it, so you're all good. So we were just kind of walking down Jackson, and the cool thing was walking underneath the L, every time the train would pass by, the whole crowd would just erupt in cheers, and then you saw people posting signs even from the L in solidarity and going like this, and just, it was really cool.
I guess you could say it's almost indicative of the whole movement, like we're told not to do it or not to go. Yeah. And yet we're going anyway, so it's kind of the same idea.
Anyway.
Like we're, told we can't get equal pay, or we don't have the same rights, but like we don't care. We're going to fight for them anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. Not my values. This is my colleague Cheryl Bundy's right in front of me. She couldn't be here today, but she had her own personally knit hat with her and her daughter. She had her 9-year-old daughter with her as well. One of my favorites, I think, is coming up right now. Yeah, this little girl was so cute, and she had up a sign with her pretty little dress on saying, "Be good, Donald Trump."
I saw that one.
Did you see her too?
I saw her, yeah. She was so sweet.
And then she had a sign on the reverse, and this one I totally loved, and I hope it's going to... Come on. Oh, it's not on there. It was "When I grow up, I want to become president." She had a sign on the reverse that said that, and that was just fantastic. And it was just really empowering. It was great to see a father there with his daughter and kind of hoisting her up on his shoulders. And yeah, so again, a lot of these are the same kind of thing. And I agree with the ladies too. There were a lot of dump Trump chants and things like that. And I didn't engage in those for the same reasons that they said too. I mean, I agreed with them in principle, but the idea is that's not going to help anything or change anything. I mean, the idea is that I wanted the message to stay positive, and so I I didn't engage in those. But of course, I'm not going to judge anybody who does that too. There's one, I am the people who form a more perfect union. My body, my choice. You saw a lot of posters like that. A lot of chants. Her body, her choice. Oh, I have a video. Well, where did that come from? Okay, we'll skip that.
Wow.
Well, and I'm getting dizzy looking at it because, of course, again, Can I skip this, or does it have to play? Grabbing misogyny by the balls. I just saw that one. How many women does it take to crush a Cheeto? I did say I did kind of like that one. I can't say that I did not. Cannot deny it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm getting myself dizzy looking at this. So let me just keep going here. Pardon me? Looks like it's a 2-minute video. I have to go all the way to the end. Oh, seriously? Okay. Thank you. Nope. Am I stuck there? Let me just try playing it. Okay, there we go. And that has nothing to do with it. So that was the last picture. Okay. So that was, I did have video. So what I wanted to do, if I can stop this and get out of this, I also was talking to the ladies. We met together on Monday to just discuss kind of where we were coming from with this. And one of the things that bothered me a lot after was the response that you heard from some organizations, conservative press, and again, I'm not going to paint everyone with a broad brush. I will not do that because that's not fair. I don't want anyone to paint how I believe with a broad brush either. But there was a lot of negativity in the aftermath of it in response to it. Piers Morgan, he's the British journalist. I'm a men's march to protest by creeping global emasculation of my gender by rabid feminists. So, again, the idea that we're rabid, right? We're foaming at the mouth because we know we're so... I feel sorry for all the ham and cheese that won't get made into sandwiches while all those women are marching.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm. A lot of nice comments. Let's be honest, ladies. Today's Women's March is an anti-democratic protest at Trump winning the presidency. This was Michael Flynn Jr., whose dad was ousted a couple weeks ago from his job. Women already have equal rights and, yes, equal pay in this country, which, no, they don't. And there's a reason for that, and we can discuss that, but that's just not true. Alternative facts. What more do you want? Free Manny and petties. I hate to break it to you, Michael Flynn, but I know a lot of men who get petties too. Mm-hmm. They're kind of a nice thing. You should try one.
Yeah, they're great.
They're great. Women in the West have never had it better. I love this one, the false equivalence. Go and protest against honor killings, you utter morons. So it's got to be one or the other, right? We either have to be in Afghanistan or we have to be, it can't just be that there are also problems, maybe not of the same magnitude as there are in other countries, but, that's got to be the same thing. So, overweight, homely women march in D.C. with pussy grab pink hats. Hashtag. Another one, my shirts aren't going to iron themselves. Wrap this up, girls. The march was a freak show, an absolute freak show. P.T. Barnum should have delayed the announcement to shut down. So I love that this tends to be a lot of the response. I think when people get threatened, in particular, the idea of, Alex Jones, who is a very rabid, I'll use that word, Trump backer, and he's had some very interesting monologues on his radio show, and Donald Trump actually has gone on his show before. He said that these were unattractive troll-like women. So they don't, they've been they're disenfranchised, but they don't feel beautiful. So that's why they're marching, because they don't feel beautiful and they're unattractive. So
because of comments like that.
Right. And I think it's just the idea that this one down here, at least Trump got more fat women out for a walk in one day than Michelle Obama did in 8 years, hashtag brightside. I guess the thing I find offensive about this, there are many reasons I find this offensive, but just this idea that, you don't like the idea of something, but when a person with this particular viewpoint, instead of coming back at the idea, they just go right to a person's physical appearance. And why is that? And I think it just kind of goes to sort of sometimes this idea that women are valued for their appearance as opposed to more of what they have to say. So if you don't like their ideas, fine. But the idea that you're going to poke fun at how they look, don't get me wrong. There were posters out there poking at Trump's appearance because it's kind of easy to. He's a bit Oompa Loompa-like. I'll engage in my own bad type of same behavior, but you didn't see that, I think, with the same amount of kind of vehemence, I think, that you were seeing in response. But if somebody has a differing opinion on that, I do welcome you to challenge me on that, because I could be wrong. Maybe I'm in my own bubble with that.
No,
but
if you look at many different accounts, not even just with the Women's March, but, women that are actresses or
Yeah.
leaders in other countries or leaders here in some way, or, they do something that stands out in some way, what are the comments that usually hit them first? Something on their appearance.
Yeah.
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 Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most
The
of the
colors they wear.
How big they look, or how small they look, or how that outfit makes them look, or their hair, or who knows, and a million different things, because that's what strikes, what they strike women with first is their appearance.
Even
That's
in-
the most important thing.
Even in mainstream media during the election, there was constant criticism of the way that Hillary Clinton dressed, with her pantsuits or whatever. And now there's a whole movement about pantsuits, which is terrific. But you didn't hear much about physical appearance from for the other candidates. It was more about behavioral. Sure, that was easy to talk about. But even mainstream would discuss how her hair looked today, or does she look presidential today, or and that that happens all the time.
Yeah, unfortunately it does. And so I wanted to bring that up as particular because I just wanted to address the idea that I want anyone to walk away from this, but particularly young women to know you are valued for more than simply the way you look. It's also what you have to say, and that needs to come first. And don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna play the hypocrite. I like to wear my makeup and look nice and look girly, but that's something I choose to do because I want to do it. It's not because I need someone else to validate me by telling me I look good. I like to do it for myself, and it's a personal choice. So that was that just troubled me about it. But are there questions from the audience? I'd like to take some comments or feedback or questions in general, or just comments in general. Yes, ma'am.
We have a microphone real quick. We'd like you to use.
Thank you. I was wondering about the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972 and how that was amended, but it wasn't gratified. So I did hear about that on the march that we had. I was speaking to one of the professors here about it, and she said that it never, was gratified and went through. So is there, how does that affect us today, so to speak?
How does the lack of an Equal Rights Amendment affect us today?
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain protections that are not in place, but let me just say this. So in order for an amendment to be ratified, to be added to the Constitution, it's got to go back to the states for ratification. And the amendment did not have enough. And you only have a 2-year window for that to happen. So if they don't get the proper amount of states, it doesn't get ratified. For women getting the right to vote, it came down to one state and actually one vote on the Tennessee state legislature floor. And there's a kind of a really quick, cute side story with this. We were talking about this last week in my class, that one of the legislators got a letter from his mother who lived in the Appalachian Mountains 2 days before the vote was supposed to take place. And his mom said to him, listen, if it comes down to you and your vote can make a difference, be a good boy and vote for suffrage. And so he did. He changed his vote. He was going to vote no, but he voted for it. And that's how it was ratified. Now, in the 70s, you had a very active campaign of other, even women, who were against the Equal Rights Amendment. And part of it was because they were afraid they were going to lose certain protections under the law as well. But there were also women who were anti-suffragists back in the 19 teens too. So this idea that, even all women are going to support it women are not monolithic any more than any other group is. So it just never garnered the support. There was talk about, well, if it's an Equal Rights Amendment, then if there's a draft, women will have to be drafted too. And again, this idea that will they lose certain protections under divorce law then, if that happens? But I think some of those things some of those particular issues have been getting straightened out anyway, but others still remain. So I don't know if there's anything else either one of you wants to add.
No, just that certain states have gone ahead and taken their own steps to ensure that there are equal rights protections for genders or based on gender identity. So that's a good thing. So a lot of times that happens, and then eventually that's how the laws get changed. So same with same-sex marriage. That started at the state level. Enough states got behind it, and now it's the Supreme Court said, yep, that's right. So
Good question.
So I'm the one that you were talking to at the march, and I marched for the ERA amendment in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
But it was, but I want to echo what you said about the war. A lot of the women who were against it, because we were at the tail end of the Vietnam War, and a lot of us had lost friends and spouses and relatives in that war. a lot of the women who were against it in this state, when I was out campaigning for it, were against it because they were afraid they would get drafted, and they were against the draft and what had happened, and that was one of the big issues. The divorce protection a little bit, but a lot of it was really also the war, even on campus, because I was a student at the time. There were still I was out marching for the environment and the ERA. My roommate was doing the sit-ins at ROTC, and so there was still that activity going on, and that was a big piece of it, I think.
Thank you.
Just to echo that.
Thanks, Dawn. That's great. And that was, I mean, it's the same of even this parade, right? You had this march. You had immigration reform was being discussed. Transgendered rights were being discussed. I mean, so it was a multitude of different, it wasn't just one particular issue. Again, we're not monolithic any more than any other organization is. So there are different subgroups marching under the same flag, if you will. Other questions or comments or? Did anyone else attend the march in the audience? So a few others did. Any thoughts you want to add to it about your experience? Yay, thank you.
Thank you. I thought it was a lot of fun. I actually woke up that morning so exhausted from work the previous night that I was like, I don't know if I want to go, but it's only going to happen once. I should go. And then I finally, had this Fighting for Your Rights song by Bob Marley stuck in my head. And I was like, all right, that's it. Like, it's going to be in my head all day. I got to go. So, and it was a really, really great experience. And, the signs were amazing. And, it helped that feeling when we all found out that, oh, wow, this is going downhill in this election. Like, it looks like, he's actually going to win. That same feeling was sort of visited by this comfort of all of these women getting together, men and women, and just seeing like, no, you're not alone. Like, you're not the only one that's kind of hurting here and feels scared and angry and sad. You have all these people with you that feel the same way, and getting up and walking together just really shows like we're here for you, and we're going to continuously, stand by each other's side in all of this. And I would really like to know how to be involved. And I saw a few links, and I would totally love some direction.
I can certainly help you with that. I mentioned a couple of links. I think one of the biggest things that we need to be doing right now is paying attention. And there are a lot of organizations that are helping us do that. It's really hard to go through whitehouse.gov and My Congress and follow all these bills and follow all these, what hearing is coming up and et cetera. But there's a group called Indivisible. So if you look up indivisibleguide.org, which is that, or .com, was that link on there? That gets you a lot of really good information on how to get involved. There is a Chicago chapter. I'm pretty sure there's a suburban chapter. There's chapters all over the nation now. This Indivisible was actually influenced by staffers who were in the White House who watched what the Tea Party did. And they took the Tea Party's actions and they put it into this guide and said, here, this is how you can flip. And so it's incredible. Now, there's a lot in there that talks about that's helpful, especially if you live in a state that isn't so supportive of these kinds of things. So it makes it a little bit harder to figure out how, like me being in Chicago, all of my representatives, they voted, they're voting no on everything. But the thing that it tells you to do is call them, say thank you, ask them to do more. Like there's certain tools that they have that they're not using right now, and I'm confused by that. And Merri and I have had this conversation about whether it be the right thing to do or not. But anyway, indivisible.com. Then also 5 Calls is this organization that highlights different things that are going on. You can make 5 calls in 5 minutes. It gives you the phone numbers of your congresspeople, your representatives. You pick by what you think is important to you. So for me, it's always going to be, environment, then immigration, healthcare, education. So I'm going to look for what's coming up on those. I'm going to find the 5 people I need to call. I'm going to make that phone call. Something you can do on your lunch break or whatever. Meetup did this amazing thing, which Meetup is an online forum for finding groups of people with similar interests, and they've always been that link actually would open up to a letter to their members explaining, hey, in the past we have been very open-minded to what kinds of groups can use Meetup and what kind of groups can come together. However, in the face of hate and greed, we can't allow certains, and we've also just opened up #resist in every single community that uses Meetup. Use this for free, organize, etc. And the letter is really eloquently written. I was like, I love you, can I donate? And then there's also, what's the other thing I was thinking of? What is it? Yeah, those are the 3 I put up there, but the Indivisible group, if you can find one of those in your neighborhood, that would really help you. There's also a woman named Jen Hoffman who writes a blog, and she decided that whatever her blog topic was about before, it was fairly active. She is now dedicating her time to combing through all of this stuff and putting it into a weekly action. And it's like, here, if you're exhausted, here's the least you can do. If you're feeling moderately energized, here's what you can do. If you are ready, here's what you can, and it's going. So you can sign up for her website as well. There's a lot of different things going on. I would say that the best way to get involved is just to find something that you can get behind and that is not going to sap your energy, but also focus on state initiatives. Like I mentioned, a lot of states are doing things. So Illinois just passed one of the most aggressive clean energy, clean jobs bills, in the nation, not necessarily as aggressive as California, but it's pretty darn good. And that happened because people were paying attention and asked to vote for it. In Illinois, we have rules that say that in public spaces, we have to have gender-neutral bathrooms. So you'll find on campus that we have them in every building. So there's things that happen at the state level that will make an impact. And if we can get more states to do that, then we can do that. One other, swingleft.org. Check that out.
And I'll
Swing
tack on.
left.
And I'll tack on real quick. The Women's March is still active,
Right.
so you can follow them on Facebook, where they have a website to see what they're doing currently.
That's true. Yep.
And to piggyback off of my colleagues here, there's an expression that all politics are local, and it's true. And I know I'm guilty of always paying attention, and I think Democrats were in general in this last election of paying attention more to national politics as opposed to more local politics, is why the Democrats have lost so many state legislatures and so many governorships. So there's even like in your Cook County progressives, Will County progressives, they meet like once a week. And so if you're interested in that, and the problem is, and I'm just as guilty of it, it takes time, it takes effort. And there are times on Friday nights where I've got commitments through my church and I can't go to one of those meetings when they meet. And so I oftentimes find myself getting, as much as I want to get involved, not finding the time. But I also do feel a great sense of urgency. And it does feel like this is a little bit different. This had a different feeling in the air, and I think it is a symbol of the fact that this is going to be a larger movement. It's not just going to die out with this.
Right.
This is definitely continuing.
Right.
Any other thoughts or questions or anything? Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you for
you.
being here.